Okay, today we're going to talk about the order of operations. Again, this is review from 6th grade and 7th grade, so none of this should be too surprising to you. There is a couple of little additions to this that you may or may not be aware of. One of the first things we have here is parentheses, right? When we do our, actually, excuse me, we have our, here we go. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally's last remark. A lot of students leave off this last part of it when I say last remark. And it's important to know that because of the fact that it means as we do our operations, we're going from left to right. So that's important to know. We're going from left to right. And it's especially important when we're doing these four operations here. The M and the D stands for multiply and divide if you're just using the PEMDAS type of thing. So again, as we do the multiplying and dividing in a problem, we're going to work it out going left to right. And again, we have addition and subtraction here. And again, we're going to go from left to right. So whatever we see first is what we do first. If we saw division before multiplication, that would actually be done first. So we have, let's say we have parentheses first. Now, one thing is, we say parentheses, but what we really mean is all grouping symbols. Okay, so it's really important to remember that we're talking about all of our grouping symbols. And we have a bunch. We can have our regular parentheses. We know that one. We can have a bracket that looks like this. We can have a brace, which looks like the little squigglies. We can also have our absolute value bars. And we can also have our division bar like a fraction. So all of this kind of stuff needs to be done before we can do anything else. The next thing we have is exponents. Exponents are pretty straightforward. If we had something like 8 to the second power, that would need to be done before we did anything else. We need to evaluate that so that we'd have just a number and get rid of those exponents. 8 to the second would be the same thing as saying 8 times 8. Don't forget that we are taking that base number of 8s right here, and we're going to use that base 2 times as a factor. So 8 times 8 is 64. So then 8 squared would wind up 64 in our problem as we were doing that. The next thing we have is to multiply, and I put divide here at the same time because, again, as I mentioned a moment ago, we need to make sure that we're doing that last remark, which means we're going from left to right. It's very important to make sure that as you are doing multiplication and division, you are seeing what you have to do as you go. So let's say that we had 15 divided by 5 times 4 minus 1. Again, I have to go from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do is the division, because that division right here comes before I see the multiplication right here. So I'm going to do 15 divided by 5. So now I get 3 times 4 minus 1. And again, still going from left to right, but at this time I only have right here, I have the multiplication. I'm not doing the subtraction yet because that's going to be my last thing in a moment. So 3 times 4 would be 12. And if I were going to continue this, I would just then do the 12 minus 1, which then I get 11, and circle my final answer. Again, if we were adding and subtracting, we're working it from left to right. So if I have 10 minus 5 plus 13 plus 2 minus 1, I'm going to literally just go from left to right as I work this out. Doesn't matter what comes first. If it's subtraction, like here, or addition, I'm just going to work it left to right. I like to, as you notice so far, I underline the one thing I'm going to do each time I solve the problem. So I'm just going to underline the 10 minus 5 because that's all I'm doing. 10 minus 5 is 5. Now I'm going to rewrite everything else. Plus the 13, plus the 2, minus the 1. And actually, I made a mistake here. There's no equal sign. We don't use equal signs here. We are evaluating expressions when we do this. So we're making it more simple. So now I'm going to, again, continue going left to right. So I have 5 plus 13. Now I get 18 plus 2 minus 1. Now I'm going to do the 18 plus 2. I get 20 minus 1. And now I do my last step there. My subtraction is the last thing I have, and I get 19. Always a good idea to circle your final answer so I can see what you're doing. Also, if you're showing your work nice and neat this way, let's say you made an error as you were going down here. Maybe you said that 5 plus 13, maybe you said it was 17. If you did something like that, I can at least give you partial credit because of the fact that you did the correct order of operations. So do make sure that you're showing your steps neatly and carefully as you go. Okay, there are some special cases that we also need to point out. If I have something like this, for example, 9 squared minus parentheses 12 minus 8, end my parentheses, all this over 10, plus 30. Okay, so we have this expression, and we need to evaluate this expression to simplify it and come down with one answer. So again, I'm going to start with my order of operations using my PEMDAS. One of the things a lot of kids like to do is actually write it down. If you leave yourself room at the top of your paper, it's a good idea. Just write down PEMDAS, because then I'm going to go ahead and work it out by crossing off as I go. First thing it says is parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to find my parentheses, and I have parentheses right here. 12 minus 8. Everything else I'm going to just rewrite. So now I have 9 squared minus 12 minus 8 is 4. All that is over 10. And I'm going to add 30 to the whole thing. Now, if we recall, this bar here that we've done, this is also a parentheses. So I still need to kind of get rid of, I got to kind of solve everything on the top and everything on the bottom before I can actually do that division at the end. So the next thing I have is exponents right here, exponents. I have an exponent right here to do. 9 squared is 81 minus 4 over 10 plus 30. I still have the top part of this to do, so I need to do this, 81 minus 4, because again, I'm still working on that parentheses kind of thing, because it's the top part of the fraction bar, so I need to get that gone before I can do anything else. So I have 81 minus 4. I get 77 divided by 10 plus 30. Now here, what I'm going to do is I can do one of two things. I can either go ahead and leave it as a fraction, which I think I am going to do. It'll be a little easier for me to do it this way. Or I could make it into a decimal if I wanted to. But I'm going to leave it as a fraction. So 10 goes into 77 7 whole times with 7/10 left over. And I'm going to add to that 30. Because, again, I needed to get rid of this part right here because that was still my parentheses. So now I have 7 plus 30. That's going to give me 37. And then the 7/10 is left over. So there's my final answer for this problem. Key thing with this, again, when you have this bar, the division bar right here, you need to make sure that you're doing everything on the top, get all the top done, everything here done, and then do everything on the bottom. If there are operations to do on the bottom, you do all that before you can finally do the division here at the last step to then add the 30 to it from there. Okay, let's practice with another one. Let's say that we have 7 parentheses, or brackets actually, 3 squared minus 2 parentheses 1 plus 2 end parentheses end bracket divided by 7 plus 5 squared. Okay, first thing we have to do is we're working inside of our parentheses, But if you notice, we have parentheses inside our brackets. You're always going to work from the very most inside one, which is right here, inside, and working your way out to the outside. So this is all I'm doing. This one step right here, I'm just doing that one thing. Everything else is getting written over. So 7 bracket 3 squared minus 2. Now my parentheses are still there because this right here, the 2 outside of the parentheses, is showing me it's actually a multiplication problem. 1 plus 2 is 3. So my parentheses are gone, but now they've changed into a multiplication symbol, so to speak. And I'm going to end my bracket, divided by 7 plus 5 squared. So now I'm still working inside of the brackets. I need to do this part right here. Now, as I do this, let me underline again in red. Okay, as I do this, remember when we're thinking about multiplying our integers, let's circle the integers we have. I have a negative 2 here, and I'm going to use that minus sign as a negative because it's going to help me to keep my sign correct as we do this. So circle the whole thing there to be the negative 2, so the minus 2 becomes a negative 2. And I'm going to circle the 3. So a 2 times 3 is 6, but it's a negative 2, so that makes it a negative 6. Everything else gets written over. 7 bracket 3 squared. Again, I said negative 6. That means it's going to be 3 squared minus 6 when I'm done with that. And my bracket divided by 7 plus 5 squared. Okay, now again, inside of my parentheses or bracket in this case, I need to do the exponents because order of operations still holds true inside of parentheses. So I got to clear it all out according to the order of operations before I can do anything on the outside of that. So now I have 7, and I'm going to now change it to parentheses. 3 squared is 9 because 3 times 3 is 9, minus 6, and my parentheses divided by 7 plus 5 squared. Now I'm just going to do my parentheses still for my last step to get rid of that. Now I have 7 parentheses 3 divided by 7 plus 5 squared. Okay, now I've gotten rid of the parentheses because again, that parentheses 3, it's acting as a multiplication symbol instead of parentheses. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my, because I should have written my PEMDAS up there, but I've done my parentheses. I have an exponent though, so I need to get my exponent done. I have 5 squared. So let me get the 5 squared done. I have 7 parentheses 3 divided by 7 plus 25. Okay, now I've got that done. Please excuse my dear. Remember, multiply, divide, go together at the same time. I just am going to work my way left to right. So I have 3 times 7. That's going to give me 21. So I have 21 divided by 7 plus 25. And now I'm going to do, again, my division here. 21 divided by 7 gives me 3, because 3 times 7 is 21, plus 25. And now that's all I have left to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that very last step there of 3 plus 25, and my final answer is 28. And I'm going to circle my final answer to show that I'm done.